Hey, what's going on, college football fans? Joel Klatt here. This is Breaking the Huddle, sponsored by Dr. Pepper. At every home gate and tailgate, it is the one that fans crave. Great show for you today and a lot of content this week, so make sure you're keeping up with college football on Fox on social media because we're going to have a lot of really good stuff coming out from today, which is Wednesday, all the way until Saturday, so keep up. Here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to give you my new top 10. We've got a nice addition, by the way, at number 10. I'm going to hug it out with a team I'm going to hug it out with a team. So we're going to do the top 10, and then I've got some thoughts at the top of the rankings and why there might be a clearer path to a national championship for more teams now than there was 3 weeks ago. And so I'm going to get into that right at the end of this top 10. But let's dive into it because there's so much info to get to, and we're boiling it down, man. Gotta love November, 2 weeks left. Hate the SEC slate. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the slate of games in the SEC because we all know, I don't think they even like it. Nick Saban would probably be the first to tell you that he thinks that this is stupid, that they're playing the Citadel. He's even gone on record that says they should only play Power 5 opponents. I would agree with him on that. So it is what it is. The SEC does a great job for themselves scheduling in order to win championships. They should not change until they're forced to change. So for them, kudos. Continue to schedule like you're scheduling because it works out for you. You have not missed the playoff, and you've got a team in Alabama that's on a run right now that's unrivaled in the history of the sport. So those are my quick thoughts on that. Now let's get into the top 10. Let's hug it out. What do we think? Come on, UCF. Look at you. Do we want to take a moment? Yes. Welcome. Really, welcome, UCF. Now, I don't want to throw a quick gut punch right away, but there was no one else. So, I kind of had to. Did you ever wait too long to ask, that girl you wanted to prom, and then, she's got a date, and now you're like, okay, 2, 3, and 4 have a date, 5 has a date, and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And you just panic and run up, to the next girl and be like, hey, do you want to go to prom? UCF, will you be my prom date? All seriousness, your win streak is fantastic. And you're a good football team. And your toughest games are now upcoming. I think that the Cincinnati game is going to be tough because Cincinnati right now has the top defense in the AAC. So your offense will get a little bit of a test. I think UCF is going to beat Cincinnati. They're a better team than Cincinnati. But this will be the best test that you guys have had. By the way, in this 22-game win streak, you've scored 30 or more points in every one of those games. That hasn't been done since the mid-30s. So it's a historic streak that UCF is on. Love Mackenzie Milton. Love the team. I don't think it's quite as good of a team as what they had last year, in particular because of some of that NFL talent that is now playing as rookies in the National Football League. But what a run they're on in the top 10 in the country. This is, by the way, the 11 spot that the CFP gave them is the highest ranked group of 5 team that they've ever given. So kudos to UCF. You guys are breaking some barriers. I don't think you're going to make the playoff, but that has more to do with the system than it does for you. So you're doing a great job. Okay, number 9, Washington State. Gardner Minshew, man, I tell you what, you went into Boulder and just destroyed my Buffs. Why you got to do that? Then you throw a mustache on Mike Leach. For that alone, you should get invited to New York as a Heisman Trophy finalist. I think you're going to make it anyways because you've been sensational. This team has been sensational. The defense has actually played pretty well. Holding Colorado to 7 points maybe doesn't seem like a dominant effort, but remember, and if you didn't know this, Laviska Shenault, the best player maybe in the entire Pac-12 conference, was back on the field for Colorado. Steven Montez, who has set a lot of records this year at Colorado, did not play well, and a lot of that is because of Washington State's defense. So this is a defense that maybe is tough enough to go in and actually win the Apple Cup. I'm still going to favor Washington next week, but I think Washington State has a great chance. By the way, you get Arizona in your building. You cannot let up. Arizona this week at Washington State. You guys should win this game. You got the better quarterback. You got the better overall team. And I think Washington State is on a path right now to showdown with Washington in the Apple Cup to see who wins that North Division. So kudos. By the way, the mustache on Mike Leach was phenomenal, right? It was so good. Okay, Ohio State. I know a lot of people have actually gotten on me about Ohio State at 8 and Washington State at 9, but this is how I would have them. I think Ohio State beats Washington State in a head-to-head matchup. I know Ohio State has not been great this season. I'm fully aware. I had them last week at Michigan State, and they didn't play well offensively. Really, for one of the first times all year. I think they even played decent against Purdue in that loss. Their defense was just brutal. There's a few areas, though, that we've been waiting for Ohio State to play well in, namely the run game and defensively. And last week against Michigan State, both of those areas showed up in a big way. Now, the defense played against a really poor offense. Okay, Brian Lewerke was banged up. He had that shoulder injury. And so the defense dominating, I think you could probably write that off to that they played a poor opponent, but they still did dominate, okay? The special teams were incredible. Drew Chrisman, tip of the cap to you. By the way, if any of you are on the computer, which you probably are right now, get on Twitter and go follow Drew Chrisman, the punter for Ohio State, because it's not just that he had a great game last week. He's like a world-renowned flip bottler, like takes a water bottle and flips it. He's got these unbelievable videos, so go check him out. Some of the stuff will blow your mind, how he throws the bottle kind of over the back of his shoulder. Well, anyways, Drew Chrisman had maybe one of the best punting performances I've ever seen. He had 6 punts down inside the 6-yard line. That's insane. Just insane. He single-handedly accounted for 9 points for Ohio State last week at Michigan State, because one time Michigan State had to take a safety on a punt because they couldn't get out from their own end zone. And then another one, they fumbled in the end zone. Ohio State recovered it for a touchdown. There's 9 points right there due to the punter. So Drew Chrisman was phenomenal. Let me get back to my main point. The defense was very good against a bad offense. Here's the part, though, that I thought was most important. The run game for Ohio State showed up when they needed it most. That was the #1 rush defense in the country, Michigan State. And they ran it for over 100 yards just in the second half when they needed it the most. In a tight ball game, when you're on the road, it's cold, the passing game isn't quite there, they know you're going to run it, you know you want to run it, and you're still able to do so. That's an important development for this Ohio State team, a really important development. Mike Weber was sensational against the Spartans. So now all of a sudden what you've seen is the passing game at times has been dominant, the special teams at times have been dominant, the run game at times now has been dominant, and the defense has finally showed up. All they need to do is meld that all together, play a complete game, and who knows? Who knows? By the way, still a path for Ohio State. Still a path for Ohio State to the playoff. I know you think I'm crazy, but it's really not all that far-fetched, and I'll get to that in a little bit as well. West Virginia at 7. Love what West Virginia was able to do. Not only did they get the big emotional win in the 2-point conversion, Will Grier runs in Austin in a huge environment. What do? They come back the next week, take care of business. That's what veteran teams do. That's why I believe Dana Holgorsen when he tells me that this is the team that he's been waiting for that has the ability to win the conference championship. There's no doubt about that. They control their own destiny to get to Dallas and partake in that Big 12 championship game. But the thorn in their side is that Iowa State is still alive, and Iowa State beat West Virginia. So West Virginia's best bet is to beat Oklahoma State and beat Oklahoma, two teams that have great offenses that they're probably going to have to get into shootouts with, because Iowa State controls their own destiny. If Iowa State wins out, they're going to the Big 12 championship game. Quite the development, I believe. And yes, that is true because Iowa State plays Texas, so they would knock Texas out of there. Lots of scenarios in the Big 12. We'll get to that next week, though, before all of those play out. Will Grier, I think you should go to New York for the Heisman Trophy. David Sills, I think you're an All-American wide receiver. The defense has done just enough. I'm concerned for them when they get up against the Oklahoma States and more specifically the Oklahomas in the world. That Oklahoma-West Virginia game in Morgantown, it might be 55-50. I mean, that one's going to be a fantastic game. Okay, at number 6, I've got Georgia. Wait, no. That was wrong. At number 6, I've got OU. There we go. I've got OU, and Georgia was at number 5. Let me tackle these kind of head on. I moved them down, and the reason, speaking of Oklahoma, and the reason was you just can't play that poorly on defense. You know, and I've been a defender of Oklahoma's. They're the best offense in the country. And I think that's pretty clear right now. I don't think there's a defense on the planet, well, in college football, let's say, surely on the planet, but in college football that holds them under 40 points. I think Kyler is borderline winning the Heisman Trophy race. More on that later in the week. but the defense is so bad. I mean, so bad. It was equally like this symphony on offense of beauty, right? I mean, everything that they do on offense, it flows, it's in rhythm, it's beautiful. And then their defense gets out there and it's like 3-week-old turkey that you pick up from the deli and you take one bite and it's like, bleh. That's what I want to do with OU's defense right now, is spit it out. And I'm sure that's what everyone wants to do with OU's defense. We thought it would improve with the change in coordinator. It hasn't. You don't tackle well in space. And by the way, quick word of the wise, all you OU fans out there, know this. When the defensive player runs up to the offensive player and stops and breaks down in front of him, he's going to get beat. Watch the good defenses out there and the great tackling secondaries. What do? Attack through the offensive player. No one stops anymore. This is not 1985 where you stop, break down, and watch the belly button of the opponent to see where he goes. No. You have to attack their legs, tackle rugby style. This is the big deal in college football, is you tackle rugby style. Rugby style is you go in full force right now, get a leg, wrap them up, twist them down to the ground. That's how it's done. You don't sit there and break down in front of them so they can run around you. My goodness. You give up so many extra yards. OU at times is in position, and then they say, what are you doing? Go tackle the guy. You're in position. So OU's defense, really bad. I'm going to have some stats later in the week for you to show you how bad they are, but how the offense is overcoming that. Now, Georgia. Let's get quickly now to Georgia. Okay, 5th in the country right now. Here's the thing I was most impressed with about that last game against Auburn. DeAndre Swift is now healthy. Okay, so Holly Rowe has the details that he had double growing surgery in the offseason. That's incredible. I mean, the fact that he was on the field early in the year after double growing surgery is astonishing, quite frankly. And now we know why they weren't quite as explosive offensively early in the season. If DeAndre Swift is healthy when they face LSU in Baton Rouge, there's no way that they lose. Bottom line, no way. LSU's not even close to Georgia. Not even close. By the way, not even close to my top 10 list. Committee, what are we doing? Unbelievable. I digress. Georgia with DeAndre Swift healthy is dangerous. He improves Jake Fromm, who's been really good, in particular on third down. Why is Fromm so much better on third down? Because their distance to go on third down is drastically decreasing because of the first and second down success they're having in the run game. Whether it's Elijah Holyfield or DeAndre Swift, that run game is special right now. The defense is pretty good, and I think that there's a path for them to win that SEC championship and potentially a national championship. I think that they're that good. That's a really good football team, a really good football team. A team that might be just a touch better because of a dominant defense is Michigan, so they're going to be number 4 for me. Michigan right now is playing, I think, the best defense in the country. Now, they gave up some yards against Rutgers last week. There was one run that kind of got loose from them for 80 yards. But rest assured, as they get healthy, they had a couple of guys banged up on the defensive line, but as they get healthy, this is the best pass defense in the country. I think this is one of the best front sevens in the country, and their offense helps them out. Did you know that Michigan is 4th in the country in time of possession offensively? They hold the ball for 41 minutes per game. 41. Did you know that Michigan's defense has seen 56 less snaps than Alabama's defense over the course of the season? 56 snaps is basically a game. Did you know that they've seen 160 plus less snaps than Oklahoma? That's basically 3 games. So their offense plays complementary football to their defense. They dominate on that side of the ball. The offense holds the ball. They run it well. They convert on third down. This team gets off the field on third down. That's a recipe for winning football. It just is. They've held now back-to-back opponents to 7 points. This team is very good. I've got Indiana at Michigan this week and then the big one next week. And this is the deal, Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, and I'll talk to you about it next week. You got to win next week. You're going to be favored. This is it. This is the biggest game Jim Harbaugh is going to coach since the Super Bowl. Hands down. Okay, Notre Dame at 3. Notre Dame beat Michigan. I am not a guy that says I think Michigan is playing better, so I'm going to rank them ahead of Notre Dame. While I believe that, I'm not going to rank them ahead of Notre Dame because the head-to-head matters, right? It's got to matter what happened on the field of play. Notre Dame went out, beat Michigan in week 1. They're undefeated, so they're number 3. Ian Book sat out with rib injuries. Brandon Wimbush comes back in. He by the way, looked better than he has maybe ever at quarterback. 3 touchdown passes. That defense is still very strong. And Notre Dame looks right now like they're on a path to the playoff. They've got Syracuse and Yankee Stadium in a neutral site this week. I think that that's their biggest competition. Remember, Dino Babers has that team as a top 7 scoring offense in the country, speaking of Syracuse. So the Domers are going to have to play solid defense this week. Clemson's at number 2. And the only thing I'm going to say about, well, not the only thing. I get it. All these Clemson fans are like, it's not Clemson. It's Clemson. And I'm like, really? Like, I'm sorry that I kind of, Clemson. It's like Denver Bronco fans telling me that I pronounce it Broncos. Bruncos. Like, I don't care. Broncos, Clemson, I don't care. You get who I'm talking about. So get off my back about how I pronounce your school's name. Clemson is a really good football team. Trevor Lawrence has been fantastic. His development in the back half of the season has transformed Clemson into a legit national title contender. That defense is spectacular up front. They're one of the best defenses up front when it comes to yards per rush given up. And they're balanced, right? So offensively, they can score points. Defensively, they can hold you. That's a team that could give Alabama some fits at some point if they see them maybe potentially in a national championship game. And speaking of Alabama, let's get into it. Alabama's the number 1 team in the country. However, let's slide away from the superlatives just for one moment and talk about why Alabama maybe showed some vulnerabilities. I'm going to start with this premise. I would favor Alabama by at least 6, maybe 7 over everybody in the country, even Clemson. Okay? Alabama's my number 1 team. They should be your number 1 team. They're fantastic and maybe are going to go down as the greatest team of all time. But as they've had some injuries, all of a sudden there's some cracks in the foundation. Namely, the fact that a great defense can essentially stop their offense. Remember, when you have a great offense, if you're held under 28 points, I would argue that that offense has been stopped. Okay, and in relation to what you're generally scoring, which is 50 points per game, you got held down almost to half of that, or more than half of that, by Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi State's playing fabulous defense, and that should not be overlooked. However, if you've also got a dominant defense like Clemson, Georgia, Michigan, maybe even Notre Dame, isn't there at least a light at the end of the tunnel that says, hey, maybe we can hold Alabama to 28, 30 points. And at that point, maybe our offense can do something against that defense that's been dominant. And Alabama's defense has been dominant. Over the last 2 weeks, they've given up 0 points. Okay? I would argue that they have not seen a very solid offense all year. I mean, name it. Name the offense that's a really good, efficient offense that can throw the ball, that has a threat running the football, that they've faced all year long. Exactly. So all I'm saying is, while the numbers are great for their defense right now, there's a crack in the foundation. If I'm one of these great teams right here that has a dominant defense, I think I can potentially beat Alabama. Now, will they? Probably not. And I would say it's probably 60% in Alabama's favor that they would beat everybody else in the country, but there's at least a path. So all this crowning Alabama talk, I think, needs to be subsided for a moment. Now, it's not going to be the Citadel this week that beats Bama, and it's probably not going to be Auburn, but I think Georgia's got a legitimate shot to beat Alabama. Nobody in the country wants to hear that, though, because guess what Michigan doesn't want, and guess what Oklahoma doesn't want, or West Virginia, or Ohio State, or Washington State? They want no part of the committee having the option to put Alabama into the playoff at 12-1 as a non-champion out of the SEC. No one wants that. Everybody's path to the playoff that's outside right now, everybody's path is cleaner if Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship game. And now all of a sudden what you're seeing is there's some slight cracks in the foundation. Tua's a little banged up. The defense hasn't played anybody of substance on the offensive side. And that offense can be slowed down, can be stopped, if you will. So there you go. Some thoughts on college football's top 10. UCF, welcome to the party. You might have been my 5th or 6th choice, but hey, let's go to the prom, right? Let's hug it out, man. You want some punch? You want some punch? I'll go get some punch for us. Maybe snacks. You can get the little cake or something. Bring it over the dishes. I mean, we'll have a good time. We're going as friends. We're going as friends. This is not going to carry over after prom, okay? We're just going to be friends for right now. And we just have to know that before this happens, right? Like, we just have to know that. Like, we're just friends. So welcome. Welcome to the party. So there you go, the top 10 this week as we head into the last 2 weeks of college football. Thank you to Dr. Pepper at every home gate and tailgate. It is the one that fans crave. Check out all the videos I've got coming up. Info on Oklahoma this week. The Heisman Trophy, why it's not a done deal. I've got info for Ohio State as well as Michigan. What is your path to the playoffs? All of that coming up this week. College football on Fox, on Twitter, social media, and Instagram. Check it out all right there. I'm Joel Klatt. Thank you for watching Breaking the Huddle. Have a great day.